Tuesday, July 16th, 2013 at 7:01. I'll ask for confirmation of appropriate meeting notice.
The agenda was posted at the Shaw Municipal Center, Milton, Piggly Wiggly, and Dave's Ace Hardware, and the amended agenda was also made available directly to the media.
All right, thank you. Item 2, I'll welcome the citizens and address any questions or concerns not on the agenda. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. As everyone in the city knows, a few days ago we lost our former police chief, Terry Hawkins. He gave a lot of good years to the Milton Police Department. He was police chief as I was growing up here in town, and just an all-around good guy, the kind of citizen that we have here in Milton, and that we should be proud of, not just for what he did in the police department, but also as a member of the Historic Preservation Commission and some other groups, and just obviously a terrible loss for the community, and there will be some services later on this week I hope everybody can come to. I wanted to ask Chief Labor, you were looking into actually our history of our police department as we're going towards the new facility, and the PD guys have been looking into some of that history, and your press release kind of summed it up, so I don't mean to put you on the spot, but maybe you could just say a couple words about the former chief's impact on the department.
Oh, sure. I didn't know Terry very well. He didn't come around the police department, but as soon as word of his death got out in the community, I started running into people like Bob Johnson and Scott McCarthy, people like that, and they were extremely complimentary of his community involvement. Coaching at the high school, he was also very involved in attending sporting events and complimenting the players and the coaches on their efforts, and his efforts in the school district to go reading to students and developing relationships with small children was very important for him. So he, as little as I knew about him before his death, I've learned a lot afterwards, and he appeared to be a very well-liked police chief who did a lot for the police department also as far as modernization and enhancing our reputation. So nothing but good things to say about him.
Heck of a loss, and if it's okay, I'd like to observe a moment of silence in honor of our former police chief, Terry Hawkins. Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Move to accept the consent agenda.
A second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're going to move up. I promised some folks. Well, first, that takes care of Dr. Eckert and the BTC folks. So thanks for coming. And we're going to move up item 6K. I promised that we'd move this up for some folks. That's the discussion and possible action regarding mobile business license. I do.
Thank you, Mayor. Going back a year ago to May of, a little more than a year ago now, to May of 2012, we had an interesting experience with a company coming into the city, and our code was really silent on the issue of the concept of what has now become commonly referred to as mobile businesses. Our code of ordinances only has what is known as a direct seller's permit. So with the code being silent on it, mobile businesses were permitted by code because there's nothing to prohibit them. And as we had that experience, we had some local permanently established businesses call us expressing some concerns. At first, that mobile business was issued what's known as a direct seller's permit. And in conversations I had with Attorney Schrader dating back to 2012, it really is not the appropriate license or permit to be issued, because a direct seller's permit is really quite arguably more so of a person or a business that would go door-to-door sales, and for which we would want to have that the $25 direct seller's permit fee in the check to ensure that, and some sort of a identification tag for people that are going door to door selling things. A mobile business, on the other hand, is more so one that would set up their operations in a temporary location, either public or private property. And so staff began doing a lot of research in a variety of different communities and really found that there is a very, very wide range of what other municipalities do as it pertains to this. So I did share with you a memo from Attorney Schrader dating back to May of 2012, providing some legal guidance as to if you do wish to permit these types of businesses, that we should do so with regulations that are imposed very cautiously, for we do not want to invite ourselves into, constitutional challenge related to the regulation of them if we do choose to permit them. So things that staff encouraged would include looking at appropriate zoning. Again, this would be on public property, to make sure that there's adequate parking, lighting, noise, things like that, that wouldn't cause undue disruption to a particular part of the city where they're requesting to do a certain type of mobile business. There's nothing that says that you have to permit these, and there's nothing that says that you have to prohibit them. I think the more, in terms of establishing a public policy, it's if you want to have them, then they should be with a very, I'll call it limited set of regulations that would be defensible if there'd be a challenge for a denial of one. So we would not be able to have such a stringent one that would say only certain types of mobile businesses are allowed. They would have to be a very generic set of regulations that would say they can only be this big, they have to have this much parking, lighting, and things like that, so that we wouldn't be subjecting ourselves to potential legal challenge. I don't know how much of an issue this will be. I think there's a lot of excitement with the anticipated grand opening of our splash pad. I can tell you that we've received no inquiries other than an application that we recently got this week for a direct seller's permit, because we don't have any licenses like a mobile business license right now. I know in talking to the mayor as we've discussed this issue, one of the things that I think we want to be sensitive to that works well for our community is the agricultural community who sets up and sells produce in our community. We've not had a problem with that. A food stand on the west side of town that uses Milton West parking lot also gets a direct seller's permit. So I would encourage some revision to the code that would permit that, maybe if under a different classification. In the research that we've done, we've seen some communities have what they call an agricultural vendor permit, which means that if you're selling your own homegrown home produce, that you can get that kind of a permit, and then you can set up shop from April to May, or April to October, or whenever it is that you want to do that. But we really haven't had issues with that. So I don't know if you want to be as restrictive as saying absolutely no mobile businesses, or allow them all with these set of specific guidelines that would be reviewed as part of an application process. But again, I don't know how much of an issue it will or won't be, other than that when we have had them introduced, some of our permanently established businesses have expressed concern. And so I'll share with you that background as well as my memo, and then I'll open it up for debate. I do know we have some business owners that are here tonight that also want to speak, so Mayor, maybe you want to have them speak.
Sure. I know there's a couple of different groups here. Anyone want to speak on this?
I'd like to hear the business plan first.
Well,
Of whatever's gonna happen.
well, right now, we would just be hearing from, we're talking about either establishing or not establishing a new direct sellers, or not direct sellers, but mobile business license. So we're not considering any application or anything like that. Right now, we'd just be talking about essentially a policy, an ordinance that would allow or disallow mobile businesses. I don't know if anyone had any thoughts on that. If you don't, I'm sure the council does. Yep, please. And please, when you do, just state your name and your address for the record.
My name's Robert Tracy, 1653 South Oak Hill in Janesville. And we opened the Cone Zone, it'll be 3 years ago this July. And we've heard it's an ice cream mobile vendor that wants to come into town here. And we're not against competition. As you all are well aware, our biggest competition's not even in Milton. It's Frosty Freeze in Janesville and Fort Atkinson. There isn't a day go by that people don't compare us to them. We've had to keep our prices to, down low to them to keep everybody satisfied, which we put out a very good product. It's a little better product than that. We know that for sure. But we don't want people from Milton or the surrounding area right here to go to Janesville or go to Fort. We want to keep them here in Milton. And they've had a business, I bet it's at least 30 years, so they have no mortgage. They have, everything's paid for, so he can stay at his dollar instead of our $1.40. So right there, that's our biggest competition. And we do not live in town here, but we give to as many organizations as we can. It's from sports to band to churches to the senior center. We give to as many as we can. Last year, our business was pretty hurt because the whole summer was just like today. Nobody wanted to come out. Nobody during the day, they'd come out at dark. So it was pretty rough, but we still tried to give as much as we could. And just like to say how proud I am of Michelle and my two girls. They're going to be the next owners of the business. That's what we've done. We've come up to establish that, to get into the community so they can have something strong to build on that we've already worked our tails off on. It's a lot of work, this business, even though it's seasonal. And I just would like to, I'd like to know a business plan on what this business wants to do, where they want to park, where you allow them to park. How old is the driver going to be of this vehicle? Why don't other communities allow mobile vendors? There's just a lot of questions that you guys have to figure out before you can make a decision on these types of businesses. You went through that last year, like Jerry said, of the taco truck that come in. And the community went together, and pretty much he didn't stay around because nobody supported him. They supported all the local businesses here that are paying the property taxes. And I just want to thank the mayor, Jerry, Howie, how you've made us so welcome to this community. It's been great. The business is growing. We are noticing people for the first time coming in, even though this is our third July. There's people from Edgerton that come, the campgrounds, northern parts of Janesville. It's been a good spot for us and been great to be part of this community. Any questions?
That's a lot that's sat vacant for a lot of years.
A lot of years. We looked at it when it was under first sale, I think, from Beatty Constructions. And we looked at it, I mean, my wife Michelle talked about it, and we weren't ready. We had a business in Janesville that we just leased out, a convenience store. We leased it to Stop and Go. And we gave up the idea, and then I drove by it again. And Link, the mechanic next door, had purchased it, added on, and then he put the balance up for sale. And then we talked to an architect, and he made it all fit. So that's when we made a contingency on buying it, if it was approved by the city. Any other questions? Okay, thanks.
I just have a quick question. How many employees do you have?
Michelle?
Up until this year, last year I had like 16, and 98% of them were Milton people, excluding my two children. And in fact, I just hired a 14-year-old Milton girl.
Usually we try to get them in high school so then they can stay through high school into college. They have the little tip jar in their window and it's got a list of all the colleges they're going to. That's a pretty cool idea that the girls did. And it was 2 days ago, one of the guys said this one is for the UW Stevens Point girl because he was a graduate from there. So,
Oh, boy. All right, thank you.
okay, thanks.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I guess, everybody would agree, we have a strong business community. It's growing. It's comprised of fixed location businesses. These folks had a business idea that they developed, and when they developed it, they found a location. They rented, bought, built, whatever. And these folks accepted the costs of doing business, which includes taxes, utilities, wages, and for a lot of their employees are Milton residents. They contribute to the community in a lot of ways. And to say that they now should have to compete with a mobile business, it's called in here, I would call these food trucks squatters. They're gonna squat in a city parking lot someplace and do business without any of the associated costs of doing business. It's not a level playing field. They're taking advantage of a situation. And other than the agricultural produce stand that's been there for years over by the railroad station, I do not support any ordinance that allows these food trucks in. I'm not anti-business as long as the businesses play by the rules. And these food truck operators would not be playing by the rules. They'd be taking advantage of the situation. And as far as I'm concerned, it undermines the current permanent business community.
We have to look at our local businesses have taken up permits, they've gone in debt for their property, and I say anybody that wants to come in and have a business, then let them rent a place or buy a place and conduct their business like the rest of them. They pay taxes, they pay property, taxes on their, and personal property, and I just don't see us allowing it either. So, it's just too much. I think our businesses have, it's too much competition for, whether it's the same business or it's a different business, I just don't see it.
Well, I hate to say we don't allow mobile businesses in. I mean, if I was maybe thinking about starting a business, I might want to start a mobile business first to see if it would work and then add later. But I do want a level playing field, as Dave said. I don't want a business to be able to undersell another business because they don't pay property tax. That's why I think it's our job to come up with a way that to allow mobile businesses, but make the playing field even.
How would you suggest that we make the playing field
Well,
even?
with-
Just
with-
so, I don't have
Well,
any
with-
ideas right
with-
now.
With a fee that would be substantial to a property tax. I mean, when you look at a property tax, I don't know what the property tax might be on the cone zone, for example, but not all of it. Yep, what would it be? $3,000. Now, how much of it is city taxes?
It would be apportioned off, there's 5 taxing jurisdictions, so the percentage would probably about somewhere between 35 and 40%.
Right, so you look at, if we would make a fee comparable to what
But you're not gonna get a business, I wouldn't rent the reason they're coming in with these mobile businesses is to avoid paying all this. The property taxes and the personal property.
but that's right, that's why it's important for us to establish, if we're gonna allow a
If
business,
somebody wanted for the summer to have a mobile business, you think they're gonna take a $3,000 license or pay a fee for $3,000?
I wouldn't say $3,000. Their taxes are $3,000. 30% of it or 40% of it is how much? $1,200?
We just,
I actually pulled up the personal property tax bill for the cone zone. The city of Milton portion is $964.88 of their tax bill.
Well, I mean, but I guess my question is, would we have, we'd have a direct seller's permit, and then we would have another licensing category from a mobile, and then we would set a permit fee? Is that how you would do that?
In your packet, there's some proposals for the $500 was the suggested concept, if you choose to allow them. I think one other categorical area that the council may want to consider is, I'm familiar with some of the conceptual plan, it hasn't been fully disclosed, but what about if there is an existing permanent business in the city that wishes to sell its product in a mobile location? One would argue maybe that's a different animal, so to speak, because conceptually, you have that person who's already paying property taxes in the city, paying a utility bill. I know that person to be here in the back, so if they're choosing to say, all right, if I wanted to take our business product and sell it in one of your city parks, I'm paying property taxes, I'm paying utility bills, is your code going to restrict me from doing that?
well, and I think, it helps to, I don't know, help us get our heads around it, that we have specific examples of these businesses, but really we're setting policy that'll apply,
Right.
forever and I. And
That's,
so,
that's why we can't base a fee on
Right.
this one particular business.
Right.
And how many are you going to allow? I mean, how many, say 10, 15 people want to set up, where are you going to put them?
Right, and that's,
Our parking is at a limit now with the different, where would you possibly put all them?
And if you
And
set up,
what's to
if you
say?
set up something where you're gonna have like suggested in here, council approval, how do you deny anyone? If you come in with a business and we say that's fine, and Nissa comes in with one and says, no, we don't want that, how do you justify that? You can't justify that. You can't pick and choose the businesses you want.
So in the,
Not pick on you.
I'm sorry, the cities that don't allow them, they just have an ordinance that prohibits them? Is that how that works? And that doesn't have court challenges to it that's acceptable?
just choose not to allow it. You just have a segment in your code that says there is no mobile businesses are permitted on city property. Now, private property, that's, might be a little different.
So you can't prohibit a mobile business from parking on private property and selling?
I'm gonna defer that question to our attorney, because I don't know
Okay.
that we can strictly prohibit it other than through zoning code.
Right, yeah, that would take some research to look at, but that's, whenever you're looking at private property, then what you start with, what's the zoning for that parcel?
Okay.
And if it's, if it's, as an example, a church parking lot, it's not likely to be it may not be within the zoning code to permit that kind of commercial activity. So that would be probably how it's regulated.
So then, but couldn't they ask for a variance or something?
Conditional use permit.
Conditional use permit, and aren't those difficult to deny?
Well, a conditional use permit is they can only ask for that if the zoning district permits allows for a conditional use permit for that use. Not every zoning
Okay.
district does. Variance, normally a variance isn't granted for uses. Normally a variance is granted for items such as the setbacks.
Okay.
That's most commonly where you'd see a variance, where there's yes, some kind of site restrictions is generally what a variance relates to, as opposed to the uses. Yeah.
Is there any standardized food inspection for food served in a mobile unit?
I'm gonna ask Mrs. Drew to.
That was what I was going to speak to, Nancy. Hi, Beth Drew, Small Wonders, Charming Bees Coffee and More, 8215 Northridge Trail in Milton. I did want to speak to that particular subject in terms of a regulatory body. Restaurants are required to carry health department regulations and have a license for it. So for bees, I pay $500 annually to carry that restaurant license. If we are not serving prepackaged items, i.e. fudgesicles, push-ups, push-pops, things like that, we would have to have regulatory agencies go through the vehicle, and it would have to be regulated, i.e. I would have to have a 3-compartment sink and so forth. So in terms, that might take a little bit of the question out of regulation, so that would take it off of the burden off of the city council. However, in terms of the property tax, that would be still something that you'd still need to figure out. One suggestion that I might add is, would it be possible for you to look at a schedule that potentially, our intent is to visit the games. And just as we had the popcorn lady out at the softball field when I was growing up, Vera Jennings, and she was able to serve the popcorn and the hot dogs and so forth. If you had a game schedule, or if you had whatever business was trying to come into the city, that they would have to provide you with a monthly schedule. And I'm not looking to put more work on the back of anybody. I realize the value of your time, believe me. But just as my concerns have been all along with what Milton is going to look like eventually when this bypass goes through, I'd like another reason to be able to have them to stay in Milton and to come to Milton. So enhance the city that we already have. Thank you.
Do you have a special license for your?
Currently, no. For the vehicle, is that what you're asking, Maxine? No, we do not have a special license. It is my goal to wrap my head around what the city council is trying to do currently, and get the splash pad open. We've got a lot of work in just within the city for getting ready for that. On down the road, if I know that you were questioning the business plan, ideally, it's to enhance our city and to draw business to bees. And
Have a special health permit?
I will, if I expand away from just the novelty ice creams, the prepackaged things.
Your intention though is to do the prepackaged?
This is my goal, not to take away business from anybody. I believe in my 15 years of being in business in childcare that we can work together, and I think it's necessary to do that. Ideally, I would like to be the mom that has the ability to walk over and get a hot dog for my 4-year-old when my 7-year-old is playing ball, and I haven't had time to make dinner. Is that taking business away from McDonald's drive-thru? It might be, I'm sorry, but that is, it's right there. I'm at my child's game, and I'm able to take care of my other child. So I still see that there is an absolute place and time for teams to go, hang out, sit down, have the camaraderie after the game. I wouldn't offer any seating. That's not my goal here. I am not here to put anybody out of business. Just as Tammy Dosh was able to welcome the Cone Zone to the city when she had the ice cream prior to it. So I believe that we all can work together.
Well, and I just, for the record, this isn't, it's a general overall.
Exactly, and I know that Mayor Fraser alluded to that, and I understand that. So I'm not looking to only look at the ice cream business. I am looking overall. When I mentioned the thought of the calendar, if the taco truck wanted to come back in, I heard it was really good food. There are so many foodie TV shows on TV. There are 4-star restaurants that operate out of these. I used to call them roach coaches. So, there are actually 5-star restaurants. So it's quite a thing. On the front page of the Gazette today was a Fort Atkinson business that has ice cream, and that they've been able to take that and really enhance the community. So I understand that this is a very minute portion of it, and you have to look at the broader picture. But potentially, if the taco truck wanted to come back and they were able to say, hey, we're going to be at this location these days during the month, would that be something that you could all live with? I don't know.
Do you know what kind of health inspections they would?
Everything that we have to do anyway. The health inspector comes in and they use their pH strips and
Inspector would
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
They did. They did. They did. Yep, they had passed through the Rock County Health Department.
The cleanliness,
And the health and how quickly.
understood.
I've seen articles on these buses that serve the food and how.
It's my understanding, Maxine, that what they do require is like a home base. So because this would be a division of Bs, that if we got to that point, I mean, we'd have the 3-compartment sink, we would have to be able to wash all of our equipment, but we also have to be able to have a home base to go to hose it down and really, really clean it. So it's not all, so that is a regulatory aspect of it as well. So it's my understanding that the taco truck came from Delavan, is that correct? So then they would have to go back to their home base in Delavan to be able to really clean it. And if that's not what you're finding, then any citizen is able to make a report to the health department, and then they would have to respond to it.
I just was concerned about, the health part.
Yeah.
When you're serving food, you gotta be careful.
If you're cooking it there, you're supposed to be able to take it back to a permanent location.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. You come. Yep.
To me, it just sounded like she was just gonna go over to Schoberg when all the ball games are going on. That's right across the street from us.
There's
You know.
Park and Central Park, and
You only have one truck, though, that's,
Okay.
Yeah, but Chipper Park that would be the school district, so we'd have no control.
okay.
All right, but we're going to get away from the specifics, of these two
Okay.
businesses.
All right,
And,
thanks.
Thank you, though. And it's really a broader policy decision. The only part of it that I feel particularly strongly about one way or the other is the ag. That the Murphys and the other folks who sell their corn and that I enjoy eating, that we not screw that up a little bit.
That's a long-standing event.
And it was my suggestion that if we do the mobile food business, that we have that higher fee, and I suggested $500 because I think it preempts a lot of people, but that's only if the council chooses to approve it. If I read the tea leaves, I think that there's a lot of folks that have some reservations.
I have some reservations because I mean, what is our capacity for having, we only have so much room within our city, and I don't know, what kind of capacity do we have to, I don't want them lined up, this isn't, it's really not Madison. I love Madison, but this isn't, we don't have the capacity like Madison does. We don't have a big square. I don't know how you would,
I think
I don't know. I struggle with it.
I think a big concern that I do have, and I know that Beth and Bill, would or will operate a really nice stand that would add something to that part of the city. I think the concern I have is that, I grew up watching that space that they're at. It was going to be a grocery store, and then it was going to be this, and going to be that, and then finally it got developed into something that is truly unique to Milton. It's like it's like Frosty Freeze, but it's very different than Frosty Freeze. I ran into Janesville Police Chief Dave Moore up there last night when my kids dragged me there on one of our 5 visits this week, and people are coming, to Milton. That's what we've spent the whole last year talking about on the east side, is how do we get people to come to Milton. So while I don't want to have a protectionist, sort of a feel, and I definitely don't believe in stifling competition, because I think it's good. I don't know if there's something different about your ice cream now than there was 2 years ago, but I think that there is. And that's what competition sometimes does. It brings out the best. That being said, if there are to be mobile businesses, I think the level playing field argument is a strong one. I'm just not smart enough, I suppose, to figure out how to level that playing field.
But the taco truck last spring was in Fort Atkinson, so they're allowing mobile businesses. I golf over in Broadhead, and they have a mobile business that was written up in the paper that they use. And so those communities have other, how do they regulate their competition? So, I mean, there's competition there. I mean, I think we're being a little bit, if I, like, let's say I had a restaurant, and in the summertime, I had an extra, I wanted to sell some people don't come in the restaurant, but they might want to buy my stuff right outside in a mobile vehicle, or I have it prepared there. So we're not going to let that happen. I mean, I guess, as long as we can make it competitive, I want, the Cone Zone has great stuff, but I don't think we should say we can't allow business to come in, as long as we make it an even playing field for them.
But it's not going to be.
Why won't it be?
Competition is always good for business, but let's have fair
But why
competition
wouldn't,
here.
why wouldn't, if we charge a reasonable fee, why wouldn't there be a level playing field?
$500 opposed to $900 is not a reasonable fee as far as I'm concerned.
And that's only one business.
That's only-
But you're talking, but don't they have to drive? Don't they have to drive if they're gonna drive? Don't they have incur costs with gas?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're paying $500 and they incur costs for gas, and they have to license the vehicle,
Well, I guess part of my concern,
then raise the fee higher.
right, too, is
Raise the
that
fee higher, but let's have competition.
I like the idea of competition. I'm not totally anti-capitalism. But I think, I don't know that we have the capacity to have multiple mobile businesses. And I guess, sometimes we make decisions and we say, well, other communities are doing it. And sometimes we make decisions and say, well, other communities aren't doing it. So you can look at it.
Smaller town than we are.
But it doesn't mean that we have to be like
know.
that.
There is another
I'm just saying, but I don't want to drive people who want to come up with, drive businesses away.
But they don't put, I guess, they take their profits away, they drive away with their profits.
Another
You know, it doesn't
company-
seem like they're anchored to the community, I guess, is a concern.
Another,
What about a mobile business that is anchored to the community?
well, let's take it out of this. Someone did approach me when all of this started to come up publicly, and said that they would be interested in selling candy at sporting events in the splash park, and they would set up a little cart, a little push cart, and they'd sell prepackaged candy, presumably at the splash pad, which is right across the street from Milton's Arnott's Mini Mart, which is Milton's candy store.
Also what the city intends to do.
But you can't, I don't think we can make regulations anti-competition regulations. That can't be the issue that decides this.
We have to
Well-
move on to discussion of how we're going to use that vending booth that comes with the splash pad. So, this is a tied-in part of the conversation that we aren't talking about.
Well, I think the larger concern is the city's capacity to have a safe environment within the community with a lot of mobile trucks, possibly occupying lots of space in an area that we're going to have a lot of kids and a lot of people coming and going. And, I guess my concern is we just don't have the capacity for it.
As far as discouraging businesses, we have empty business locations all over the city. Anybody that wants to start a business is welcome to look at those locations. They don't have to operate out of a truck.
Some businesses are more seasonable, though.
Yeah, that still doesn't stop you from renting a location for your business period. I don't see any way to equitably set up a fee that not only parallels the business we were discussing earlier, or the family restaurant, or Junction Pub, or any of them. You have to put them all together to come up with a fee. You can't just say $500 doesn't even come close. That doesn't even scratch the surface.
Well, I think maybe we should just, if we really wanted to do this, we could figure out a fee. But I think there's so much concern right now, and it's not like we can't ever revisit this, but it sounds to me like there's so many concerns right now that, maybe we should just, take a vote and see where we're at.
I guess the part that I am concerned, is is if this will be a prepackaged arrangement, you are leveling the playing field because I scrubbed equipment for the state of Pennsylvania inspections for many years, and to have clean equipment, if you're actually making a product, if you're selling prepackaged, I don't have the same health concerns. If you're doing ice cream, you are cleaning your equipment to strict regulations. I'm just wanting to be sure that the health inspections, dairy products in warm weather want to be inspected.
But we're not talking about an ordinance for selling dairy, it's a broader issue than just one specific, product. I mean, that's what I'm looking at, is it's a broader policy decision for the city.
I guess if there's no other comments, I would move to go with option B with the exception of agricultural seasonal business produce stands and prohibit all others.
That's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I would have one thing that I would add there is we should, as Alderman Adams indicated, an exemption for ag businesses, but then there should also be something there for obviously nonprofits and groups that,
The discussion that we're going to be having.
yeah, I would say fundraising, operations and that type of a thing.
Shall I poll the council for a vote?
And what is the?
Could you repeat the motion?
Yes, please.
Alderman Adams moved to approve option B with the exception of agricultural season business stands and prohibit mobile business licenses, seconded by Alderman Striegel. I will call on council individually for a vote.
So does that exclude nonprofit? I mean, we talked about nonprofits, so I'm
Is
wondering.
it okay with the motion to include an exemption for nonprofits? Okay with the second. Okay, off you go.
Okay. Would you like me to repeat the motion?
Please.
Okay. Alderman Adams moved to approve option B with the exception of agricultural season business stands and prohibit mobile businesses and include an exception for nonprofits. Alderman Striegel seconded the motion. Alderman Adams.
Aye.
Alderman Welch.
Aye.
Alderman Striegel. Aye. Alderman Ladder. Aye. Alderman Berwin.
Motion carries.
One motion carries.
One issue that arises out of that, currently everyone was paying $25?
Direct seller's permit.
Direct seller's permit. So obviously, and that's what the ag stands have been doing every year, right? Is there any concern with that fee remaining at $25 for ag stands and any nonprofits that register? Anybody has any concerns, raise them now.
What were you saying about nonprofits, they would also pay 25?
I don't know if they actually pay, but essentially, is it everyone's intent that everything stays the same with ag and nonprofits?
I don't know if we've had a nonprofit that has applied.
Okay.
Current direct sellers apply to door-to-door sales. The experience that we've seen are people selling home improvement like siding, magazines, and newspapers. The agricultural stand has the direct sellers, as that was the only permit that kind of applied to that.
So we'll change the name, but it's, the $25 is okay with
I
everybody.
think we ought to read what option B is so that the folks out there know what it is.
Two options, Mr. Mayor, real quick, to just make it a little bit more clear for the public.
Yeah.
We do not do a direct seller's permit for any nonprofit. So Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, band, football teams selling stuff,
Door to door.
they do not have to pay that fee.
If they were to set up a food stand,
Correct. That would be and we do not charge them now. Nonprofit organizations, if they're doing a car wash down at Dave's Ace or anything like that, they do not have to pay. I would encourage that practice to continue because the purpose of them is trying to raise money for the organization. So,
Correct. Girl Scouts door-to-door cookie sales, it does not.
4-H.
Correct.
Maybe read the text of the motion back so folks out there.
Okay, please.
Well, option B should be read.
well, option B isn't what we actually did. Go ahead.
Option B, as discussed in the memo, it states, if the council seeks to not allow mobile business license, direct the attorney to draft an ordinance that would prohibit them would be appropriate.
So essentially what will happen is the attorney will work with staff to draft an ordinance that will essentially prohibit mobile businesses, with the exception of ag businesses where they're selling their own homegrown produce, and nonprofits who would be operating a temporary food stand. And so that ordinance will be on proposed ordinance will be on a future agenda, which would then require 3 readings.
Unless we move to waive the
for
second and
adoption.
third.
It still requires 3.
Options, yes.
We would just waive 2 of those options. So that'll be a future agenda item. And that is what the council has voted to do at this point. So we'll move on to item,
Could I possibly respectfully request that the $25 check that I submitted be not cashed? Is that possible, since I am not going to be allowed to do business?
check has not been cashed. The check was held, I believe. Isn't that correct?
It was accepted today. I could easily board the receipt
Oh.
and return the check.
I don't know if you need council approval for that, though. All right, thank you.
All right, number 5, public hearing for Dickoff Drive curb and gutter estimated assessments to property owners. At this point, I'll open the public hearing.
In council's packets, you'll see that there is documentation that was made available to the property owners on Dickoff Drive for special assessments for the replacement of curb and gutter. Per ordinance, they are eligible to be assessed 50% of the cost. I don't think we see any property owners that are here for the public hearing. A future agenda item discuss the resolution that establishes the payment plan.
Public hearing is open. Anyone wishing to speak on it? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and move on to new business. Oh. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Didn't even bring the ice cream.
By the time I got here.
All right, 6A, discussion and possible action regarding initial resolution 2013-19, authorizing 1.81 million in general obligation bonds for police facility.
Mayor, council members, my apologies for this having to be back on the agenda. There were 2 statutes that were somewhat in conflict. In reading your packet, you'll find that there is a requirement under state law that there be a clear distinction between the police department and the municipal court facility. For those that were on the council, you remember we had to separate and do a wall between Becky and Chris and some signage. When we put together the agenda, Michelle had talked to me and said, you know, what do we want on there? And I said that we want to make sure that municipal court and police are separate. However, the general obligation bond statutes are such that we are only borrowing for the police department facility. So the resolution that we did was appropriate because we're only borrowing and using borrowed funds for a police department only because the city hall and municipal court require a referendum. And so our bond attorney reviewed it after we posted the agenda for municipal court and police facility. He asked for a clarity email. I talked with Attorney Schrader, and although our statutes and our policy is to generally try to be as prescriptive as we can, so we're as transparent as we can be with our agendas, for these particular purposes, the general obligation bonds can be for a police facility only, so that is what your agenda says tonight. I did explain it to Judge Keffler why we're doing it that way. She completely understands. The general public knows that it's only a small segment of the actual police facility that also houses the municipal court clerk. And we're segmenting that off, obviously, in the construction document to say that this is all the borrowed funds, city hall, municipal court, and then this is all cash, and then the police department is all borrowed funds. So that's why we're doing the renoticing the notice in the agenda and the electors to make that abundantly clear for people who bid on our bonds that this is for a police department only. Has to do with the statutes for general obligation borrowing.
So what do you need from us?
Just a motion to borrow the money again, that's all.
Adopting resolution 2013-20,
I'll make the motion that we approve Resolution 2013-19, authorizing general obligation bonds for the police facility.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh, aye.
In the nick of time. All those opposed? Motion carries. 6B, discussion and possible action regarding Resolution 2013-20, directing public notice to electors.
Same thing here is up above, Mayor, that this just solidifies that the notice to the electors, which is the same resolution that you adopted before, specifies police facility.
Move to approve Resolution 2013-20.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. C, discussion and possible action regarding Resolution 2013-21, providing for the sale of not to exceed $1.965 million in general obligation corporate purpose bonds.
Rolls off your tongue with that nice number.
Amazing way that just rolls off his tongue.
Amazing. What
We were
happens
just
when
gonna
you
write a
become
bunch
mayor.
of money. Figured we'd be more specific than that.
Same as above. These recommendations to put this back on there is for what Mr. Lanzer, the bond attorney, said is a very, very conservative approach, but you want it to be exactly right when these sales go to bond. So that's why all of these three are back again. And so same as it was before. Simple authorization to direct staff to approve this resolution 2013-21 for the sale not to exceed $1.965 million.
Move to approve resolution 2013-21.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I just noticed on the recommended action, the numbers don't match up. Don't tell the bond attorney. And I apologize for that having to be on the agenda again. That's something that our bond attorney should absolutely have caught. He reviewed every one of these documents, and so when Jerry had a conversation with Ellers, and we're getting to the bottom of why it wasn't caught. We're supposed to do it right, but we pay them an awful lot of money to make sure we do.
That's where we have
Do it
Mark.
on our own.
That's where we have Mark, right?
We just do it.
No, Mark, it was not Mark.
Oh, it was not Mark.
No, I said that's where we have Mark.
No, it's not
I
Mark.
usually don't jump to defend
meant that we don't
attorneys,
have-
but it was not Mark.
We don't have any mistakes.
I received no funds from this bond issue, so.
All right, item 6D, discussion and possible action regarding Resolution 2013-06, Dickoff Drive curb and gutter, estimated assessments to property owners.
Resolution 2013-06, as the mayor mentioned, is in your packet. Looking through these in the past, staff has kind of looked at the total estimated assessments. Again, once the project is complete, we'll know a more exact assessment. We've looked at the totals, and we try to present a payment plan that works with property owners. In this, we're recommending this would be charged in 2 installments. The first one being billed upon completion of the project, not due until September 1st, 2014. At that time, property owners would have the option to pay it, or it could roll onto their tax bill. Some people like it just to go on their tax bill. Second installment would be billed appropriately after the first installment, so they'd have advance notice, plenty of time if they want to make payment arrangements and pay, monthly versus just waiting till September. Again, the second installment would be due September 1st, 2015. And the balance would then roll on property tax bill as the assessment.
Any feedback from the individual owners?
I have not received any concerns for these. I just had a call that just wanted to reiterate what our policy was and what the ordinance was as far as what they could be charged. And they just want a clarification of what the project was. Howie or Jerry? Okay.
We've been very consistent with how we do these special assessments, it's,
And you can see the highest assessment is city. So unless council has any other recommendations for payment action, staff is open. We just have to choose the resolution to reflect what they would like. All right, so motion to approve resolution.
will there be any flexibility after we pass this? Could this present a true hardship, or do you do the installment plan just, as?
We do the installment plan as a courtesy to property owners, yeah. A couple years ago, we tried to get away from it, and that was when the county kind of had a hard hit, and, you know, we certainly want to work with everybody, because this is a planned expense for property owners in general. We feel like breaking it up into two assessments, and as they were notified early June, and they have essentially until next September, where the first installment would be. And there are times where the projects come in under bid or under cost. Sometimes they vary, maybe it'd be $20 less than what their assessment is, but it
But
doesn't.
to your point, we could always act in a specific instance to,
I mean, we have in the past.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
When we did Newman Court, those assessments were actually a little bit, some of them were a little higher than this one, and we split it up into the two.
We've had instances with individual property owners where we've made very extended payment arrangements. So, the recommended action would be to approve resolution 2013-06.
You had a motion.
Oh, I did? Oh, way to be there.
I didn't hear that either, thank you.
Yeah. Do we have a second? Second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item E, discussion and possible action regarding denial of operator license for Ty Selbrady.
This is.
Mayor, the Personnel and Finance Committee recommends to the council that this denial be carried through based on the number of violations.
Alcohol-related violations.
Yes.
Mr. Selbrady received three alcohol-related violations within 5 years, which did not meet the criteria to hold a license in the city, and that would be the motion that we're looking for.
What is the criteria?
It is 1 in 5 is discussed between Chief Labor and I, and at that time, if we feel that the 1 in 5 is appropriate, we may request a meeting with the applicants, we may request them to retake the operator course, or we could ask them to reapply after a certain period.
Do we always put these, are these ever on the consent agenda?
They cannot be.
Okay, got it. All right, so the motion is to deny the operator's license as recommended by the Personnel and Finance Committee. Do we have a motion?
Yes.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
And I would recommend there be some discussion so that there be a basis on the record for the denial, if that's the vote.
Alderman Adams, can you just restate the reasons for denial?
3 alcohol-related citations in 5 years, which does not meet the criteria to hold an operator license in the city of Milton.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item F, discussion and possible action regarding ordinance 377, establishing fees by resolution and repealing the soda water license.
Thank you, Mayor. This was an issue that came up before the city's Personnel and Finance Committee tonight. One of the things that we're looking to do in our review of our Code of Ordinances was a recognition that many of our fees that have been established are established within the Code of Ordinances, and so over periods of time, when those fees don't actually capture some of the staff costs or the service demands for the particular user or applicant for a fee, that we seek to amend that, and doing so right now would require us to amend those particular ordinances, which is a very expensive process and arguably a very inefficient way to adjust fees. One of the things that I've learned at training conferences, as Clerk Everett, is a more efficient way to do that is to have all of your ordinances that have fees indicate that the fee will be established annually by council resolution at budget time. So that way, each of the various fees that we have, whether it be for conditional use permit, zoning, variance applications, all those sorts of things would be established annually at budget time for revenue sources to make sure that the application and its fee accurately capture the true costs of processing them. So that's where this is recommended. And then the soda water license is something that we had many, many, many years ago, and we're recommending repealing it simply because we don't enforce it anymore. We used to have
I
a
was trying to figure out, what is a soda
$5
water license?
license if you had a soda machine. And We don't.
My
do
gosh, we could be raking in the dough. Come on.
Apologize
What's that opportunity?
for diminishing this non-tax revenue opportunity, but we just really felt it was somewhat archaic and not used, so we'd be better off to repeal it.
The revenue generated from the soda water license did not cover the cost of the paper at the time and the typewriter ink when they had to type them. That was when I started, and so it didn't last much after 2002. If council chooses, you have the option to approve the first reading of ordinance 377, waive the second, third, and adopt, or you may just approve the first reading if you'd like.
Would move to approve the first reading, waive the second, third, and adopt.
All right, there's a motion.
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just one question, these can be changed if you,
The next item on the agenda is resolution 2013-118, which establishes a fee schedule, which is where we'd be able to change fees by resolution. Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item G, discussion and possible action regarding resolution 2013-18, establishing a fee schedule.
Thank you, Mayor. This is, again, as was discussed at the city's Personnel and Finance Committee tonight, and what this will allow us to do is annually, in those cases where the ordinances have now been amended to not have a permanent fee established, for the council to establish those fees annually during their budget development time, and then do so by resolution. Give staff the authority to then put out the appropriate fees and the fee schedule on an annual basis.
So who collects the fire run? I'm just wanting to understand.
That one would be governed by the Joint Fire Commission, and that some of that actually has statutory prescriptions or statutory limits on it. More so what this particular code of ordinance would say, example being discussed tonight, the direct seller's permit has been $25 for an incredibly long period of time. And so if you said annually, we would recommend that you raise this to $30, or your operator's license fee permit, it's been $30 for quite some time, and maybe it should be $35, so, or whatever that may be. So we would evaluate that annually, and then staff would make recommendations for you for what we think those fees should be, and then ultimately you would approve them by resolution.
No, I'm puzzled by the first one being fire department, which doesn't, it's only half under our jurisdiction there. So I'm wanting to understand how it gets there.
Correct. My understanding of how that would work is the fire commission would say that here is the fee that we are allowing our department to charge each of the participating municipalities. So if the fire commission establishes that and say, city and town, you as joint owners can charge this fee, then that would be how that would be established.
So they charge it together and split it for $250 each, or do they charge, each of them charge $500 and go forward?
False fire alarm?
Yeah, I think. What your question is, the false fire alarm, right?
Well, yeah, in
Yeah,
either of the fire situations, it's
Fire run.
joint fire department. So my question is, how do we have the authority on a joint fire department to set the fees?
The city, we have a fee for false burglary.
False fire alarm, second subsidence.
Are these fees, well,
When I did the research for this, I went through section by section, and anywhere there was a dollar amount, we looked at it. If it was a fee, we drafted it for the ordinance and put it in the resolution.
Right.
And I will, to answer your
So
question.
that's why it's on the list.
More specifically, Alderperson Lauder, I will see Chief Lippincott tomorrow with the Fire Commission meeting, and I'll ask him how that got established, but I think the $500 may be a limit by state statute. And so that's the maximum we can recover.
I'm trying to understand, it's very, is this together or separate?
Right. And my understanding of right now, fire department revenue from those fire runs, that goes right back to the department. So then that's an equal 50-50 split.
My question,
I will confirm that with Chief Lippincott tomorrow.
thank you so much.
So you want a motion for 2013-18? I'll make the motion that we adopt Resolution 2013-18, establishing a fee schedule.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item H, discussion and possible action regarding ordinance 378, amend freestanding signs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This came through the Plan Commission with a unanimous recommendation that we would amend freestanding signs and their setback requirements to uniformity so that all could be within 10 feet of the right-of-way. Where this comes from is, as we move down the agenda, the YMCA Crossridge Park entrance sign, because of the changing topography related with the Highway 26 bypass project, they actually are looking at a 17-foot sign, and our code of ordinances had the setback be proportionate to the height of the sign, so they would have had to be 17 feet off of the roadway. As we are also examining the possibilities for our own Welcome to Milton signs, that restriction would limit the height that we would have on our own Welcome to Milton signs to be proportionate to how close we could be to the roadway. So given the fact that those bridges and all of that fill now came in and for lack of a better term, kind of sunk Milton a little bit in that process through the bypass, staff is recommending that we change that rule so that signs do not have to be proportionate, freestanding signs, but instead can be uniformly in all districts except B3. They don't have to have that height restriction, and they can be up to 10 feet close to the road.
If council is interested, again, with the ordinance, you have the option to approve the first reading, waive second, third, and adopt, or if you choose to just approve the first reading at that time.
This is 10-foot.
Setback
So
requirement.
that's road right of way, but you're doing 10 feet from road right of way?
Correct.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution, or ordinance 378.
Would that be approving the first reading?
I was just going to say that, approve the first reading, waive the second and third reading.
Thank you.
So a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item I, discussion and possible action on Parker YMCA Crossridge Park entrance sign.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As indicated in the council packet, the Parker YMCA does want to proceed with purchasing a sign that will welcome them to Parker YMCA. The current people who would be on that panel as approved in the conditional use permit is Mercy Health System and Parker YMCA. Dr. Denboer has asked me if we want the city to be on that sign because having us on that sign has a cost implication for the actual cost of the sign itself. What he has proposed to me to date is a third of the cost to be on the sign, to have City of Milton, Crossridge Park, our logo, whatever it is that you would want on there if you want to be on there. At sign cost estimates, I asked him what he's got, and he said somewhere between the $30,000 to $40,000 range to be on there. It is going to be a digital variable message sign, and in our discussions, he said, I would certainly let the city have all of the use of the sign for city events and for anything that it would want on it as part of that cost-sharing agreement. And then also that the YMCA would be responsible for all utilities and all maintenance on the sign going forward. So we would not have, it would be a one-and-done expense.
Does he have the image that we are voting on?
It would be that which you saw in your plan, do all of you get plan commission packets or no? I'm sorry, I don't know. They do. Okay, so it is that 17-foot sign that has Parker YMCA on the top, Mercy Health System, and City of Milton. And if you wanted to be on there, I would have Tom come back before the council and say, hey, yes, before you commit to this, where do you want to be and how much is it going to,
I guess my understanding when we entered this agreement, it's our land, it's our, his parking's on our, dirt. And I guess it was my understanding that when his sign was on our spot, part of the deal was that we got a little wedge of that sign. It's always been referred to as the
That's what
YMCA.
I wanna see.
And now he shows up asking us for $13,000
And I'm confused, I wanna understand what we're talking about, because, yeah, that's where last I heard, we were on it. And so this is, I'm
That's what I said at
confused.
Plan Commission, it's our land.
yeah.
What all of this, what are we talking about?
Well, it is the sign that you had from the Plan Commission that was approved when the council approved the conditional use permit to put the
Subject to
sign.
putting Milton on it, which is where we're getting confused.
The council never made the conditional use permit contingent on the city logo being on there.
They requested in findings of fact. It still had to go to staff consideration.
And the Plan Commission can't make a monetary component. I mean,
They can't, but I think, you know, the intent of this body when we entered that joint agreement was that, you know, placement of the sign, and I think it's a little bit of a gutsy overreach, to ask for $13,000, you know, for, a very small portion of a sign, and then to wait until the 11th hour, to do it. And I like Tom Denboer very much, but, you know, he's certainly as gutsy.
We were talking
And-
about the word Milton appearing on that, and that's what we are confused at. Where is the word Milton appearing?
That was the discussion, it wasn't, a plan wasn't submitted with Milton on it.
And
So we're
that's where
still
I'm
at that
confused.
discussion phase.
Well,
is
the
that correct?
discussion tonight, though, is, do we, you know, if the price is $13,000, do we desire to have the lowest possible location on a sign that you can only see once you're already out on the edge of Parkview Drive? Or would those dollars be better spent elsewhere, in the city, perhaps on a different welcome sign?
Well, I think we ought to ask them, we were under the impression that it was going to be, we were on it, and it wasn't no charge.
And did that discussion take place at Plan Commission or at City Council? So we could look back at the Plan Commission minutes.
Well, the Plan Commission doesn't actually have the authority to direct anything.
Well, no, but you can sort of have like a general consensus as what our understanding
Our
is.
understanding, yes, was that stated in the,
The Plan Commission wanted to see Milton Crossridge Park on the sign. At the time, and correct me if I'm wrong, but at the time when they were looking at this, they weren't approving the words or the layout of the wording. It was approving the sign and the structure. As far as I am aware, there hasn't been finalization of what the sign is going to say. Okay.
And the Plan
so-
Commission doesn't have authority to review the text of a sign. They only have the purview of the technical.
Or what we pay or don't pay to be on it.
Right.
That's this
Well,
body's job.
This is this body's job, but I feel uninformed without what it is that we're talking about.
But I think we have been awfully accommodating. We just let him build it, you know, however many feet taller and however many feet closer to the road. It's on our dirt, and I think we've been a pretty good partner in a number of ways, you know, with this project. And I know it was my impression that placement on that sign was a part of the deal.
I think we ought to go back and table this and go back and Jerry tell him that we were under the impression that there would be no charge
And
see
we
what's-
want to see what it is that
yeah,
we're talking
what-
about.
Yeah, what we're getting for the 13,000 or whatever.
If he wants 13,000, he should show us a picture.
Well, I would like to see the word, on that model, the word Milton, on their Milton
Well,
Crossridge.
we,
That's
we,
what Plan Commission.
City of Milton.
That was
Crossing.
the request.
Yeah,
I'll
both,
tell you guys right now, we can make a hell of a sign for $13,000 and put it, you know, right
Right.
next to the park.
but is that
Well, I
sign,
was wondering
sign
if
gonna-
we,
that sign
can't we make our own sign?
that sign gonna promote events, though? I mean, if, you know, this is gonna be a 50-year thing. You know, that sign's gonna be there for a long time. And over that own period of time, is a $10,000 investment, a good investment over 50 years to promote our events. Because this is
Right.
a major fact
Right.
area people are coming in.
I mean, people are there, it's
Let's look at
not
the
like
big-
it's
let's
not
look at the
gonna be
big picture.
seen.
It's a lot of money in the
This is
short
what I
term.
want to completely understand, what we're saying, because it's sort of morphed somewhere along the line.
Let's get a little more.
And they can help promote city things within the YMCA, and the YMCA is gonna be a draw
Absolutely.
to have people come to Milton to be
Absolutely,
there. So it's gonna-
absolutely.
I
So we have,
don't mean, yeah, adversarial, but it morphed somewhere.
Well, he's gonna, in Tom's defense, he's gonna wanna order a sign so that he can have a sign ready to go for his grand opening. And I certainly understand all of your considerations, cause they're the same ones I have, you know, is this the best $13,000 that we can spend to be promoting Milton? I see pros and cons to it both ways, I really do. I think we have made such a considerable investment, but so too has the YMCA. And we have looked at dollars and cents every part of this partnership. I mean, we have paid a considerable amount of capital costs, which is why that when his proposal came forward, it was consistent with that, in that there is no operational cost for us after this investment. And so as Don is suggesting, after 20 years, if we have a digital variable message board sign for which we have no other anticipated expenditures, I would argue $10,000 over 20 years is probably not a bad investment.
Well, I would agree with that, except that, you know, this sign, as he's got it illustrated there, that's not a 20, our area of the sign is not a 20-year sign, and digital message centers' lifespans are much shorter than 20 years. The technology changes, you know, I mean, daily. That digital message center won't be up there for 15 years. And I guess,
But that's,
I
but that's something
understand.
that we could write into the contract, that when it
Right.
changes, we will get grandfathered into that change and they will absorb.
We
the
won't have any
Would-
additional costs
We won't have any
ever.
additional costs. We can,
mean, how can we-
we can
I
amend
mean,
that.
the parking lot.
which is good, but we've already gone from, our understanding as a body was that we had no costs as it was, and here we are, time to pull the trigger, and now he's saying, oh, and I need a check for $13,000.
I never understood it that we didn't have any cost. I don't remember saying that they didn't have any
Well,
cost.
it
Maybe,
didn't come to council.
This is the first time he said, he's gonna,
Yeah,
I mean,
this is the
he-
first time
yeah,
it came to
he never had a
Yeah.
approval to do a sign first, and now that he's gonna buy a sign, he's saying, okay, Mercy, if you want on, you gotta give me $10,000 if you.
We don't know that Mercy did it either.
We don't, you're right.
I mean, they donated it to the capital campaign, but, you
Right.
know.
Can this come back on the next agenda with, what his vision is?
I think what I'd like to do, and I tried reaching out to Tom a couple times yesterday and today, and I couldn't get in touch with him, but what I'd like to do is go and get clarification, you know, just let him know that that was our perception, at least a majority, I mean, I'm hearing from a handful of people, that we thought that this was a no cost and part of our, you know, our joint venture on the parking lot, which serves both the YMCA and the park. And perhaps that was us, you know, making an assumption, but just the same.
but,
We desire to be on the sign.
right. But like I said, that would be our only ever investment in the sign. If sign changes, technology, we don't make that cost. We'll make that upfront cost, but not any more cost after that.
And when the wind blows it over like the great pumpkin, it's their insurance that will deal with it.
And the other concept, this is his first proposal. I mean, we don't know that, like, this is his end port to it. If we say, okay, we want to be on, do this, and then you say that, you know, these are the parameters for which you want to be or willing to pay to be on the sign, if you are at all, then that's something that we can work through. But he said, call me Wednesday, because I want to order a sign. I'm gonna open in November 1st. I want to have a sign there.
Well, we don't even know, I guess my concern is, so he orders a sign and, you know, the city of Milton it's really small, and Mercy's really big, and
I just suggested Milton be up where Parker was, but everybody.
Well, even if it appears in Cross Street,
Parker gave a little money to that.
clear.
Their skin might be a little bit more than ours is, but I'm happy to have a conversation with Tom and then bring him back, put him right before you and say, he wants us to be on. I think even more so than just for the dollars, because what he said, it more truly reflects the true collaboration of that entire project. He bought city land. They're making a $4 or $5 million investment in our city. We've got $250,000 into parking lot and lights and other stuff. I mean, it really truly is a collaboration.
Right.
I think from a policy perspective, it makes sense. I don't know if $12,000 makes sense, but I think that we work through that process and hopefully get to a point where everybody gets what they want.
So let's take no action tonight, and let's have that conversation. We'll put this on, you know,
6th.
chat some other time. All right, item J, discussion and possible action on analysis and policy alternatives to current beer permit issuance policy. These are wordy.
Thank you, Mayor. This was an issue that had been discussed after a series of Personnel and Finance Committee meetings where we had members of the community that were seeking to be able to have alcohol in our parks. And as you'll note, in 2012, we did change a policy to both licensing to sell and also consumption. our city has in its current code of ordinance that alcohol consumption in city parks is prohibited unless you get a beer permit. And as indicated in the memo, we issue those permits about 130 to 150 times annually. And some have have asked the question, why do you have a code that says you can't consume alcohol in our parks, but you grant a permit 130 to 150 times a year to allow beer in our parks? Doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense. So we reviewed the code, and we presented a series of policy alternatives for you. I have talked with Clerk Ebert and Chief Labor about this issue prior to putting the memo together to really kind of get not only some regional research that Clerk Ebert has put together for your review, but also some information from Chief Labor about have we had any issues when these beer permits have been issued. And the answer that we found from Clerk Ebert's research was that the majority of communities around us do allow consumption in their parks, absent any kind of a permit process. And the second piece was, in speaking to Chief Labor, we've not had any conduct issues related to any beer permits that have been issued. So I think that speaks to the people who are using our parks are doing so responsibly and appropriately, even when a beer permit is issued. Which then kind of begs the question about, as we're putting together, budgets and work plans for 2014 and beyond, one of the things that we were looking at when we established these fee ordinances that you saw before tonight was, does the $10 beer permit fee accurately capture the true cost of staff time processing the permit, and then also right now currently Detective Justice does a background check on the applicant, and it doesn't. The actual cost of the permit did not fully recover staff time costs of processing them. But then I think perhaps more importantly, and in conversations that I've had with Mayor Frazier about this, we don't want it to make it difficult for people to use our city parks. All of you on the council have been, and the mayor is either a council person or now as mayor, have made considerable investments into our parks to make them easier, better, more friendly for people to use. And we don't want to have a cumbersome process by which for people who want to have graduation parties or family reunions or whatnot to have to go through that process and not be able to use them because of how a code of ordinance is written. And so staff's recommendation is that option C, which is alcohol would be permitted in the city parks, be an amended draft or a draft amendment to the ordinance. And that was also ultimately the recommendation of the city's Personnel and Finance Committee tonight to the council to amend the ordinance and delete the prohibition in city parks.
Just tack on that, because I know people probably have thoughts, but the one other part of that discussion that we have been having is how does that apply to youth sports facilities, which are in many instances parks. Some of them are school facilities, and so fall under a different category. But I suppose the only real concern I have is a possible prohibition on consumption in our youth sports facilities. I know that there probably wouldn't be any problems, but well,
Practices.
I mean,
But so much is in Shelburne, which is a major school district.
well, but Liberty Park and Lamar Park, whatever the work is, that was the only thought I had about this. But Jerry's right. We should make it easier for the public to use our parks. Clerk Ebert actually told me that we turn a number of people away every year because they don't have time to do the background checks and all that process. And that,
There's a few. I had a gentleman this Monday morning came in to rent a park for Thursday as they're renovating their home, and they ran into an issue, and their house can't be ready for an anniversary party. No beer permit, but it's one of those that, currently right now, we still do the background check on the park permit. And I'd hate to say no, and I said, you have to pay cash, it's within 10 days of the rental, pay cash for the rental, security deposit, and, we'll get moving on the permit and see if we can get a permit to you. So it's a short notice for a lot of these, and in this case, he didn't request for the beer, but,
So you would remove the 30-day wait, and is that to be removed for both?
Proposal is to do away with the permitting altogether.
for the consumption, not for the sale.
Okay, that's, I'm wanting to understand
Temporary
difference?
Class B picnic licenses are needed to sell beer and wine. That's what the FFA gets for Fourth of July, for example. The 30-day application requirement would still stand. We are not touching that. That's state
That's for
statute.
selling.
This would be for a anniversary party in a park where they want to bring in a cooler and their guests can sit and have a beer at a picnic table and have a hamburger. It would be
What's the fee do we charge for that?
$10 for residents, $20 for non-residents.
That was just a shakedown, just pay the $10 and
So,
we're all happy.
I'm okay with the fee. I wish we'd charge a fee though, that make sure everything was cleaned up, if they're gonna do
We
that.
charge a rental fee and there's a required security deposit.
Okay,
The security deposit is only refunded after Public Works
Okay,
has
that's,
inspected.
okay. Then I'm fine with that. I think we should do that, because it makes sense to me.
Do you find the majority of the people that rent leave it decent?
Yes, they do. Yeah, whoever rents the park, they know you've got their name, their phone number, everything, so they clean them up afterwards. Very, very few problems ever.
If they want their security deposit back, they're cleaning
We
up.
supply them with a list of rules that talks about any noises, it talks about the curfew hours when the parks are open, it tells them instructions. If they arrive and they see that there is damage or a mess left, they are to call the police department or the non-emergency number. They have an officer come inspect it. We do this because if they get there and there's damage and they don't report it, we don't know when it occurred. Yes. And also, we supply them with a checklist of cleaning, which is to make sure, you know, they don't leave any messes anywhere. If you spill something, you mop it up. You wash the counters of the parks. You lock it up when you leave. Just general cleaning. So they're supplied with these items when they rent it, and then when we mail their permit, they get another copy. And they have to sign on the application that they've received them.
Can I make a motion that we change it to what you've proposed?
What the personnel and finance passed or recommended?
Yeah, let's, all right, let's,
The language in the code that prohibits the use of alcohol in city parks and the beer permit process.
yeah, I'll make that motion to accept option C that the Personnel and Finance Committee recommended.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just so it's, I made the motion to bring it to council, and you know my feelings about this beer business. And the only reason I'm gonna go along with it is because if there is problems, that we can visit it again and stop it.
But, yeah, and I'm understanding that we can, so.
Right. And the motion is to draft an ordinance change. That we're not actually voting on the ordinance tonight.
Correct. So those in the public that think that we can start doing things differently tomorrow, that's not the case. Yes, the motion is to draft an ordinance. I want to add a little bit of clarity and guidance so that Attorney Schrader and I have some discretion. Youth sports dominate the 170 acres of park that we have. And so from an enforceability standpoint, it may be incredibly challenging to say you can't do it while you're having a youth sport or a youth practice.
Well, and that really wasn't in option C, any
It was not,
restriction.
but I just want to be clear so that we're following the direction the mayor had referenced that. Is that what the council wants, or does the council just want to delete the prohibition? So we know what to put together and bring back.
Well, what I voted on was option C.
Okay.
If it becomes a problem, we can then amend it.
Right. Because I don't see how you, I mean, that was my thought, I don't see how you can enforce that, any type of restriction. We just have to see how it goes.
And this would bring hers in a little thing.
What we will be bringing
With
back then,
Maxine right by my side.
what staff will be bringing back is just the deletion of the prohibition in city parks.
And my request will be that we keep an extra strong look on, because we all know how youth sports can get.
Yeah, that was my concern, and about the youth parties at the park,
Yeah,
where they.
Well, you still have to be 21.
you do have to be 21.
So,
Yep.
but, you know, we, like you say, if we have problems, we can go back and.
Yep. All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. General items. Next meeting will be August 6th, 2013. Mayor and alderpersons report. Hopefully everyone got the message about the memorial services for Chief Hawkins. We're expecting that to be pretty well attended. So Howie's folks have been helping out quite a bit, getting some additional parking next to the cemetery ready, and and some other things here and there. So I hope everyone can make at least one of the services. Second, and on a little happier note, the Splash Park will be opening officially on Friday. Is it open before the grand opening?
5 o'clock.
All right, so
Your kids are not to crash
so
the
line
party.
up early. We'll wait all damn day until we.
That's right. They'll be lining up at 4:30.
With their Buzz Lightyear sleeping bags out there all night. So
We can camp out the night before, right?
I have heard
Camping is
from
allowed with a beer.
about half the council that the council intends to run through the sprinklers. So
We are?
we'll see what that ends up, being. But and then finally, and the happiest of news, we held the second budget listening session. This one was not as well attended as the first. No, it was not. No.
Is the polite
Nancy,
understanding
Maxine, Jerry, and Inga and I had a good chance to catch up on some things, and
Well, I was missing. That's why it wasn't as well attended, I'm told.
we talked about growing up and how times change, and the weather, of course. And then we left. So, but
Well, we're gonna keep trying.
there'll be another one at MFR, which is almost by definition well attended, because my MFR is always full, so of opinionated people.
Go there at 5:30. You're gonna have all the opinionated people.
We're going there. Yeah, we're going there at 8:30.
I have heard about that 5:30 group. I have.
5:30 to
Table to
6:30
table.
group is a rough crowd. They're the ones
I
that-
know.
We're gonna get our money's worth for the third one. So
They're the ones that'll tell you how to run the city.
Absolutely.
that's all I have today. Any alderpersons reports?
I would like to report that the 4th of July, I think, was a great success. Right, Chief Labor? Wasn't it a great success?
Except for the traffic jam and the fireworks, I thought everything was well done and people were orderly.
Is there a parking problem near Schoberg?
Fireworks going.
There's gonna be, because the overflow from the splash park is gonna go there.
Honestly, the problem, and I shouldn't say the problem, but where the traffic was held up, I was able to get out of the high school fairly quickly. But once we got to the top of this hill, we stopped, and it was a four-way stop. And everyone was stopping appropriately, and you'd proceed, and then the line would fill up from Parkview to the stoplights, and they'd have to wait for everybody. So that's where it was, and I think it just flowed up the hill. And it was just, everyone was stopping at the stop sign, which is great, and waiting for the stoplight, which is.
Had that ever happened before? I mean, was it ever that bad?
We didn't have a four-way stop before.
I think we had a lot of Janesville.
Right.
Green subdivision was parked full. My street was never parked before. I'm sorry, I
Oh,
didn't know
yeah,
anything.
we always walked, so,
I know,
we
but
walked by all those cars.
Where I live was never cars parked there, but that
Yeah.
was completely full.
Yeah.
Next year, we get to park on your lawn.
Janesville canceled, and there were a number of people there from Janesville, so
was beautiful
it was good. And it was great fireworks.
Great fireworks.
And I also want to add a thank you for Brian Paul, because, everybody worked together, and Brian Paul put in incredible amount of time and effort. So, everybody did a wonderful job.
Any other alderpersons reports? Okay, staff reports.
Thanks, Mayor. As you touched on, the splash pad opening at 5 o'clock Friday, a lot of excitement, a lot of anticipation, probably fewer moments in my professional career were as fun this afternoon watching our Public Works Department and our City Hall recreational seasonal employees there when they turned the water on. And,
We were not notified the water was getting turned on.
Oh, did you do what?
I'm pretty sure I would have been there.
But there was a trial from a few people that did.
Cool.
Just a really, really neat experience. The unfortunate tragedy last week kind of caused me to personally and professionally do a little bit of reflecting. And sometimes I think in our society, and I'm probably preaching to a choir in this task, in this group, but that to do a better job in my job of appreciating how hard our staff works, how hard all of our seasonal workers, our Public Works Department, our Police Department, in making Milton the community that all of us can be very, very proud of, whether it had been the 4th of July and everybody working so hard to get the community looking beautiful for the 15,000 plus people who come here and enjoy that great celebration. Howie has had all hands on deck this week getting ready for what we think is just gonna be a wonderful celebration of our community's redevelopment efforts in Goodrich Square. A process that's taken, 2 years for us to get there. And looking at the beautiful colors and the comments and the emails of when's it open and when can we go down there and when can we use it, and all those sorts of things. And to appreciate the people who are making that happen. And I heard a line at a conference that I was at this winter where it said, always appropriately remember and honor the people who came before you and work for the people who will come after you. And I think that that's exactly what we're doing right now, and we're truly living the city's current motto, and that is history and progress, and that we're creating things for future generations that will enjoy forever and making the city better. And so, Howie, Chief Labor, and all your staff for the work you did on the 4th of July, and everything that everybody is doing, City Hall staff getting ready, being, sensitive to our demands to be down at that site for making sure everything gets all ready and is in tip-top shape so that it meets or exceeds everybody's expectations on Friday night and beyond. I'm really grateful because it's gonna make our city so much better for so many more years to come, and it's such a great, exciting first step for us. It's just, it's really exciting to be a part of that. There's not a lot of communities that are doing all the stuff we're doing right now, and I think all of you and all of our staff can and should be really proud of that.
I think, I mentioned it on Facebook, but I'll mention it here. Former Mayor Chesmore was a big believer in this splash pad project. And I know that, like Jerry said, we've been working on it for 2 years. So, a lot of folks have come and gone. And, I said it on Facebook, and I mean it. Without Mayor Chesmore, that thing wouldn't be happening. And so, so hopefully people remember the folks who have worked on this, the folks who are, John Berg, was very protective of his well, down there. And there's a lot of folks who go into making our city what it is. And Jerry and I talked about it the other day, and we talked about it a while ago when John passed. And we don't appreciate each other, as much as we could or we should, and we just were so busy all the time. Even us as council people, we see each other a few times a month. This is it's a moment in time, that we all get to spend together, and every once in a while we get to do something cool like the Splash Park or the Veterans Park thing, and so yeah, you're right, Jerry. We should appreciate each other more.
Has an email been sent to Tom?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I also called former Administrator Schmidt and invited him, because he was a part of the planning process for that, so. I think it's just gonna be a great time to celebrate our community in the direction that we're headed.
Okey-doke, Public Works.
Besides Splash Park, Dickoff Drive project should start around the first week of August, and the water mains over there probably too the first week of August.
Just as
After that
exciting.
and after the Splash Park, it's
Just exciting.
it's exciting. After the Splash Park, it's chicken barbecue. So.
All right, good. Police Department.
Other than planning for Terry's funeral and visitations, we've been pretty busy with the normal summer activities, and kudos to the Sheriff's Department and Janesville Police Department for helping us out for honor guards and traffic control, and they'll be answering emergency calls only while we're at the funeral, so the burial part of it. So Dave Moore and Bob Spoden were way out front and offering to help, and so we've taken advantage of those offers.
Another great and busy summer for staff. We're seeing anywhere from 350 to 450 up to 600 people a day coming through the library. So we are really looking forward to our expansion.
That's our next
Day we
exciting.
think of that, and I've lately been having to work at the front desk more and making my way around kids that are coming for their summer reading prizes and getting, more books. And so it's a great summer for us, and we're looking forward to the expansion. We have, I had a foundation meeting last night. The Library Foundation has approved the funding for a conceptual plan for the expansion. So we're going to start with some intensive, they call them charrettes. It was new to me. So we'll be meeting with a lot of community members. I already have really, as this has been talked about, through the month. So we're going to be doing that and looking forward to that.
Good, thank you. Joint Fire, City Clerk.
July 23rd, the bids are being opened for the new building. I'm very excited for this. Jerry teases me because I'm excited for this. I have all the plans on my desk. So very, very excited. August 6th, the bids will be reviewed and hopefully we'll get something favorable there. And following tonight, we'll be following up a lot of ordinances, resolutions, and wordings and getting some permits lined up and some applications modified and busy week.
Good. City Treasurer.
Vacation, mayor excused in New Hampshire.
All right,
Okay, consideration of a motion to convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute, section 19.85, parent 1, parent E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Reference to Public Works Department union negotiation contracts and the pre-annexation agreement and industrial park land sale.
that's a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous vote of the council to approve. All right, we'll